Well, thank you for being here. Today is a day I hope would never come to Wisconsin. Quite simply, I'm astonished, I'm shocked, and I'm appalled that today we will be taking up two bills that will completely change the framework of how Wisconsin operates its elections. I believe it's nationally groundbreaking legislation when you allow unlimited money to be spent 60 days before an election with absolutely no disclosure and absolutely no disclaimer. I think the potential for corruption is enormous. And I would even go so far as to say I believe strongly this will lead to significant corruption in Wisconsin. Power corrupts, absolute power corrupts, absolutely. And this is Exhibit A of how you have a group of people that feel so emboldened that is opposed to dealing with the issues that hardworking Wisconsinites struggle with every day to put food on their table, to try to ensure that they can have their kids well educated, to try and fix our crumbling infrastructure, that none of those issues matter. That what matters to the Republicans, that they are special ordering these bills because they want to protect their political power, they want to enshrine themselves forever, and I think it's going to have the opposite effect. I think that they will be run out in a rail in many cases. Combined with what they did on open records, which is one of the more shameful things I've seen done in this legislature, this rises to that level. It is unbelievable. It's unthinkable to me that in a state like Wisconsin, you would have unlimited spending with zero transparency, zero disclosure, zero disclaimers. It's just beyond comprehension that in a state like Wisconsin, with a proud, long reputation and heritage of clean, open, and transparent government, that it would come to this. Now, as I said, the last day of session last time, in our last session, our last day was the worst last day I had seen, because as you recall, on that last day, they allowed lobbyists to give money out earlier, and they restricted people's right to vote. That's how we ended last session. Before they went home, they had to get those last couple provisions put in place. This dwarfs that. That makes that look like it's barely in action whatsoever. And that the impact on local officials, but especially the impact on hardworking citizens of this state who will be effectively muzzled from having an impact in their government when you have millions, tens of millions of dollars, maybe hundreds of millions of dollars come in without disclosure is just extremely sad. And let me say that, I've been looking at the polls, and they are so on the wrong side where the people of this country in this state are at. The Bloomberg poll was reported just a month ago that in a new Bloomberg poll, 78% of those responding said Citizens United should be overturned. But what's so amazing is when you break it down, even the Republicans, even their own party, by 80% to 18%, are against this notion of unlimited spending. And this is without even asking about with zero transparency, zero disclosure, and no disclaimer. Democrats 83, Independents 71 to 22, but 80% of their own party doesn't agree with what they're doing. And so it's a sad day. And then when you get to GAB reform, the speaker's been misleading people into thinking that somehow, I've been talking about this for a year, everybody knew I want to get rid of Kevin Kennedy. What he didn't say, as Paul Harvey used to say for the rest of the story, is that in order to have a significant investigation of perhaps somebody on the Finance Committee or anybody else, you have to go to them and say, hey, by the way, we believe that there could be corruption. Do you mind if we investigate you? It's like, do we live in La La Land? I mean, under what circumstances do you have to go to people who are potentially being investigated to ask them for permission to get the funds to investigate somebody? It's just outrageous. It's hard for me to believe that in a state like Wisconsin, this day has come. And I think when the citizens come to understand this, as I hope they will after today, I hope it'll be crystal clear, as we were so fortunate yesterday in our briefing where it was completely crystallized by our legislative council attorneys that yes, it is absolutely true that over 60 days and before an election, you can have unlimited spending by individuals, unlimited spending by corporations, and they do not have to disclose at all what exactly who's spending the money, and there does not have to be any disclaimers on those ads. And the public, I think, is going to be outraged when they hear what the Republican leadership, and if they all vote this way, what the Republican Party has come to. So I want to turn it over to one of my fellow members of leadership, our Assistant Caucus Chair here, who has worked extremely hard in committee and has had to struggle through these issues over the course of the past few weeks. She's just worked extremely hard. I'm so proud of her efforts. Representative Zamarripa.
Thank you. I'm Representative Jocasta Zamarripa. I sit on the Elections and Campaigns Committee through which these bills have come through, and I want to let you know that today does mark the end of clean, open, and transparent government in Wisconsin. With these two bills before us today, campaign finance and the dismantling of GAB, I shudder to think about the storm that is coming in our great state. Remember that GAB, the Government Accountability Board, was born out of the 2002 caucus scandal, when members of both political parties were engaged in campaigning right here in the halls of our Capitol, campaigning, fundraising, organizing their events right here in the halls of this Capitol. It floors me to think of that today as a member that's been in here since 2011, to think that that kind of illegal activity was happening right under our nose. And we are going to go back to those days of the caucus scandal with what they have before us today. GAB dismantling will create two commissions that are toothless, partisan, toothless lapdogs. These two commissions, they will not be allowed, they are not allowed in this bill to put forward any proactive investigation into wrongdoings that elected officials could be engaged in. That's what the Republicans are proposing today. That's what's likely to pass today, putting forward two toothless commissions in this GAB proposal, dismantling the GAB, no watchdog to keep politicians in check, politicians like myself, politicians like Representative Barca and Speaker Voss. This is abhorrent. I still can't believe that it's before us today. And campaign finance will allow unlimited corporate dollars to flow into our states and influence elections and ultimately state government and policy moving forward. Unlimited corporate dollars, among many, many other drastic things. I thank Representative Barker for inviting me to speak to you today about how horrendous these bills are. There are a number of things that are going to come up today on the floor. One thing that I've pointed out time and time again in committee, that Speaker Voss, in his bill that he's the sole lead author of, the campaign finance bill, not only increases contribution limits, takes away disclosure requirements, allows unlimited corporate dollars in. He also went so far as to delete the Wisconsin idea of campaign finance, Chapter 11's preamble, that says good things like excessive spending on campaigns for public office jeopardizes the integrity of elections. Good things like the legislature finds and declares that our democratic system of government can be maintained only if the electorate is informed. That's our voters, the electorate, our people here in Wisconsin. He couldn't bear to have this in Chapter 11. He had to delete it, something that I believe inspires civic engagement, that inspires trust in the people of Wisconsin towards their state legislators. I think today's a travesty. I think we need to make sure we are letting the public know what a dark day this is, and that this is going to mean a return to corruption and a return to the dark days of the caucus scandal in the early 2000s.
Any questions?
What are some of the alternatives your caucus is going to be proposing today?
Well, we certainly will have amendments to this bill. We don't believe that anybody should be able to spend unlimited amounts of money and not have any disclosure. We think that's absolutely terrible. We also, as far as we know, we believe we will be the first state in the nation that will allow corporations and billionaires to coordinate campaign spending with candidates for express advocacy. We think this will be groundbreaking. We obviously don't want to see that type of coordination go on. We will have a series of other amendments to pull out those types of things. We just think that this goes in exactly the wrong direction. And on GAB, we don't believe you should do away with nonpartisan judges who exercise their own judgment. Let me remind you, the GAB, all but one of them have served in some type of capacity as a Republican. You listening to them talk, you would think this was some leftist organization. And let me also remind you, a majority of those people have now been appointed by the governor. So he has a majority of his people on the board, all but one who have some Republican background, and they're going forward and they want to change that to go to basically the system that we had, as Representative Zamaripa said so articulately, that in one of the darkest periods in our history when we had that caucus scandal, and we actually had legislators go to jail, and we're going to return to that type of system. We don't think that's right. We also believe that they should have some sufficient amount of money so that they can proceed with investigations, and that they shouldn't have to ask the people they're investigating in some cases whether or not that they're okay with that, and that they'll actually give them money to carry out that investigation. But we'll have a series of amendments that will make it clear what the key points are, and we'll argue those vigorously. And it's hard for me to imagine. I mean, Republicans, I guess, are going to have to let people know today that they think it's okay to have zero disclosure of money being spent over 60 days before an election, that they're okay with the idea that they have to give permission if in fact they're investigating themselves, that they want to allow for unlimited coordination. These are things they're going to vote on today. It's going to be startling to me to watch people say, oh, we think this is the way we need to go in this state.
And let me
Certainly
just
defies our heritage, defies what we've believed in as a state ever since the early 1900s.
And I just wanted to add, we're also around that JB. I know I mentioned the toothless commissions that cannot proactively initiate any investigation into wrongdoings that electeds may be engaged in. Additionally, the bill says that an individual can, if somebody wants to come forward and lodge a complaint because the commission themselves cannot proactively launch an investigation, they have to put in a sworn complaint, and if it's deemed frivolous, they could be fined up to $500. So what I say when they tell me that they're trying to put the power into the hands of the people is that that's completely false, because what you do is you don't define frivolous in the bill, and then you threaten to charge an ordinary Wisconsinite up to $500 if they dare to petition our government and launch a complaint against one of their elected officials for wrongdoing.
Yesterday, Jonathan Becker, who heads the Campaign Finance Division of GAB, which you all want to keep, said that the campaign finance bill is a good bill. So what is he seeing that you're not?
He said that he thought that this campaign finance bill is coming forward as a good bill. For the life of me, I don't know. I have no idea what he's smoking.
Do you think that this GAB bill is a revenge against Kevin Kennedy? And if so, would this bill be before us if he had resigned his position?
Well, it's hard to speculate. I mean, clearly the speaker, made a very emboldened point that Kevin Kennedy has to go. So he made it clear that was part of his objective. Whether or not they would have dropped it if he'd have left, it's hard to really know. I mean, I think that behind this bill, aside from going back to the partisan days of ineffective regulation and ethical watchdogs and going to partisan lapdogs, is going to hurt us enormously. But I think they really wanted to get in this provision. You have to get permission if you're going to do a significant investigation. That's like, what's hiding behind the curtain. That was a part that they just revealed for the first time in the last week or so. And I think that was a big part of it. So that's why I think he probably would have gone forward with it anyway, even if he resigned. But clearly, there's no question that was a big part of the motive of the speaker moving forward with this, because he said before all of you, Kevin Kennedy has to go.
You guys are going to be on the floor for 10 hours, arguably, probably knowing how this is going to turn out. What's to be gained from spending all this time debating the bill, offering these amendments?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have to offer amendments so that the public can understand the most egregious elements of what is being proposed today. Secondly, we think it's very important that as part of the historical record, when citizens can look back to the days when we had clean, open, and transparent government, what changed, who wanted to change it, and who was against it, and why they were against it. So it's part of the record. It's important that that debate take place, and we hope we'll have clarity on that issue by the time we're done.
What do you guys think?
You want to add something, or you were going to say something?
I would just say that it's very important that yes, 10 hours. If the option were available, I believe that this would warrant going all night. I think it would warrant a filibuster. I mean, this is so huge, and I think it's important that we continue to shed a light on it so the public realizes what this is going to mean for the future of our great state. Unlimited dollars get to come into the state and influence elections with no transparency, no disclosure. It's frightening when I think of the future of this great state, and I want to make sure that the public realizes that.
You know, I thought the Eau Claire Leader-Telegram said it so well in the editorial that they had. This is a blueprint for inaction and eventual corruption. That they went on to say that history tells us it would only be a matter of time before egos would embolden certain politicians to steal the public's money for partisan political purposes. The Eau Claire Leader-Telegram went on to end by saying, to revert to the same untrustworthy arrangement that led to fraud and embarrassment last time. You know, obviously, they're totally against. You know, as we said the other day, and I truly believe it's a combination of these three bills, and then what will come forward next week with the changing of civil service, that I think Wisconsin clearly is open for corruption. I think money's going to come pouring into the state like we haven't seen, because for the first time, nobody will have any idea who these people are. They're spending this money. So there's no accountability. So if you believe in accountability in government, then this is your, if you don't believe in accountability in government, this is your bill.
Senator Olson has said that he doesn't think the GAB bill can get through the Senate right now. Is that a surprise to you? Are you relieved to hear that, I guess?
Well, of course I'm relieved to hear it, and I hope it's true. I hope that, you know, that Senator Olson and a couple other Republicans will stand up when it counts and ensure that they say enough is enough, that they don't want to be part of us, leading to a state that's open for corruption. I'm hoping that they will go forward and do that. So I was very pleased to hear that, of course.
Peter, modest jobs loss in the state of Wisconsin in September, a couple bad audits at WEDC. Have your colleagues on the right suggested any sort of reform at WEDC, any sort of legislative reform?
I've not heard of any suggestions they have. Of course, Senator Lassa and I put forward a plan to revamp WEDC completely, to essentially eliminate the WEDC model that we have now, and to go to a fully public authority that handles the grants and loans, and which would allow us to combine the money that comes in from the federal government, and also would allow our Attorney General to represent WEDC in recovering funds, and then to have the board there for strategic value, to help with strategic direction, and to help to raise money, so that it's not just taxpayer money at stake, that we have companies help to contribute. Years ago, we used to have a lot of contributions that would come in.
Any Republican support of you and Senator Lassa's proposals so far, Peter?
I haven't heard any yet. I mean, there's not a hearing scheduled. Of course, that's not surprising. Our first 15 bills were all bills that we thought would help create jobs in Wisconsin. Not one of them is even at a hearing. You know, as you can see today, there's not any jobs bill being brought forward at all on their side that I can see. It's just strictly consolidating their power and trying to rig the election system and allow for corruption. So, thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.